and welcome. This video will go through 10 non-case study questions. The questions cover a number of Unit 1 topics. This will give you additional practice prior to your exams, whether that be the Unit 1 exam or the Unit 1 resit exam, or both. You can pause the video as we go along and attempt the questions too. There are free resources for you. Do check them out. They are in the description box. Identify 5 and only 5 ways to reduce the cost of motor insurance, 5 marks. So before we look at the answer, if you're not sure how to answer identify type questions, then do check out this video. I will put the link to it in the description box. You can pause the video now if you'd like and attempt the question. One possible answer that you might have, 1 out of the 5, is they could fit an approved alarm or immobiliser. Pay the premium for the year in one payment instead of monthly payments. Pay a higher voluntary excess. Build up a no claims discount. And also, premiums may also be lower for cars kept in a garage. There are other points that you might have included, and they will accept any other appropriate response. Next question. This question is another identify question. Identify 5 and only 5, and they do stress and only 5 because sometimes students put more than 5 and you won't get credited for it. Main features of the 14-day cooling off period when someone takes out a credit card or personal loan, 5 marks. You can pause the video now if you'd like to attempt the question. They may change their mind. It starts from the date that the agreement was signed or the date that the customer received a copy of the agreement, whichever is later. They can cancel the agreement. There are no penalties. And they can return the card or loan. They will accept any other appropriate response too. Next question, and it's an Analyse question. Analyse the possible effect of external influences on somebody at the young adult stage of the personal life cycle. Now, this is a topic 2 related question. So if you're not familiar with external influences, or you don't remember it, then do ensure that you have gone over this material because it's key to know about the personal life cycle. External influences as well. So, external influences, there are quite a few examples. Here they are. General state of the economy could relate to recession or a boom, changes to interest rates, government legislation, the rate of inflation, taxation, a role model or marketing. So these are some examples of external influences. These are not in the control of the individual. So totally out of the control of the individual. Now for this Analyse question, you need to obviously be aware of what the young adult stage is. So that's an 18 to 25-year-old. For this question, you need to give a good analysis of the possible effect of external influences. Quite a number of effects are included and the analysis of them should be quite extensive. So you might include something like for a young adult, they're likely to save for aspirations such as a holiday, but may find it difficult to save. Now they might find it difficult to save, or if they are going to save, then you need to consider the impact that external influences such as interest rates would have, whether they are increasing or decreasing, and think about the impact that would have on any savings that they have. For a young adult, earnings may increase if they are employed, but there may be a concern about the possibility of unemployment. There most definitely will be a concern about the possibility of unemployment if we are going through a recession, for example, but they might feel more secure within their job if there is a boom. Another point that you might consider is they will be influenced by short to medium term forecasts on the economy, interest rates, legislation, etc. They are unlikely to be too concerned by longer term matters. So if there was a change, if there was a government legislation, there was a change to do with pensions, whether that's the age that someone can receive it or whether that's the amount, the young adults are unlikely to be too concerned about that. Just a reminder to like share and subscribe, as I do post regularly. This question is a describe question. Describe how tax codes are used by employers and employees. 5 marks. For the describe question, a good range of points should be made and they should be detailed. Here are some points you might include. Employers use the employee's tax code to work out how much tax to deduct from their pay. People who have more than one employer are given 2 tax codes so the HMRC can ensure they get the correct personal allowance. Earnings below the tax code allowance are free from tax. Employees can understand how much they can earn before paying tax. And you might also have included the format for a tax code is 4 numbers and 1 letter, for instance 1257L or K396. Our next question is a compare question. Compare the advantages and disadvantages of making payments with a debit card and a prepaid travel card abroad. 5 marks. Now for this 5 marker, you should make a good attempt to compare the advantages and disadvantages of using a debit card and prepaid travel card. There's a good balance to the answer in terms of both debit cards and prepaid travel cards. What I'm including is some points you might mention, you wouldn't mention them all. Debit cards can be used in many stores, hotels and restaurants. Debit cards can be used in ATMs to withdraw cash in the local currency. If lost, the card holder must claim for a new card. The individual is limited to the balance in their account. For prepaid travel cards, individuals must load the travel card with money to be used abroad, and it can be topped up when required. It can be used to withdraw cash at an ATM. Currency can be converted to the local currency at the point of sale. Describe why there has been a decline in the use of checks to make payments. 5 marks. So you can pause the video now and attempt the question if you'd like. Some businesses refuse to accept checks. The cost of processing checks is greater than processing payment card transactions. It can take a number of days after the check has been deposited for the money to be accessible. Since 2011, there is no guarantee of payment, so people are only willing to accept payment by check from people they trust. Providers cannot honour checks if the person who wrote the check does not have enough money in their account. Now, you wouldn't include all of these points, but these are just some points you might consider in your answer. Another describe question. Describe 5 reasons for the likely continued growth in the membership of credit unions. 5 marks. The distinctive philosophy of credit unions. They are cooperatives owned and controlled by their members. They are non-profit organisations. Members are linked by a common bond. They provide services for all kinds of people, but do aim to help those less well off. Financial capability, education element. There's that to consider as well. Other reasons. The opportunities for financial inclusion that they can provide. They provide services, facilities for those who otherwise might have difficulty because of poor credit ratings. It avoids these people having to go to payday loan providers. And the idea of self-help rather than state handout. So again, you wouldn't include all of these points, but these are just some points that you might want to include for this answer. Describe the role of the Prudential Regulation Authority, PRA. 5 marks. You can pause the video now if you want to attempt this question. Here are some points you might want to include. The Financial Services Act 2012 identified 2 objectives for the PRA to promote the safety and soundness of providers and securing an appropriate degree of protection for insurance policyholders. The PRA ensure that the UK financial system is better able to cope in a crisis and can support to enable the economy to be successful. The PRA has a role to ensure that if a provider fails, it does not cause significant disruption to the UK's financial services. Additional points that you might include. The PRA sets standards and requirements that providers must meet to manage risk, including threshold conditions for continuing in business. These thresholds include holding enough cash, also known as liquidity, and having enough capital funds to absorb a certain level of losses, having suitable management, being fit and proper, conducting business prudently, that is managing risk well to ensure the business is safe and sound. It's very important that you know the role of many of these bodies that you'll find within topic 8, such as the FOS and the FSCS, the FCA, etc. So it's very important that you know the role, because you could have a question that asks you to describe the role. Describe how citizens' advice can help people who are in debt. 5 marks. You can pause the video now if you'd like to attempt this question. Free advice on debt issues and entitlement to state benefits is offered. Advisors are aware of other sources of advice related to a person's needs. Independent advice is offered, and it can provide this independent advice on debt issues. They have telephone advice and online advice. The advice that can be offered can cover how to sort out debts, how to sort out a dispute to do with a credit card, how one can manage their money, their finances, so there could be kind of like budget options and help for getting out of debt, and also dealing with urgent debt. So you wouldn't need to include all of these points, but these are just some points that you might want to consider. Our final question, and it's a 10-mark question. Analyse why it is important for a person to produce a cash flow forecast as part of their short-term financial management. So for a 10-marker, an excellent response would mean that you give a deeper analysis of all relevant points at a consistently high level. So let's take a look at some points that you might want to include in your answer. Do pause if you want to attempt this question. Cash flow forecasts can be used to identify options of how and when to finance short-term deficits. So it will help one to identify that. It can also be used to identify any surpluses when a person has surpluses that they can use to save or make larger repayments on debts, if that's applicable. It can be used in regards to planning. It forces an individual to identify items of income and expenditure and amounts, such as a mandatory expenditure, essential, and discretionary. Now for analyze questions, your answer must be balanced. You must look at the other side as well. So in this case, you would also look at disadvantages, and that is what you need to do for an analyze question. So for the cash flow forecast, there may be some inaccuracies when creating or analysing the cash flow forecast, and that could lead to poor financial decisions being made. The cash flow forecast does not always take into account external influences such as an increase in inflation. And finally, cash flow forecasts are only a prediction and they're not a reflection of what is actually happening. Thank you for watching this video. The next 2 videos that will appear on the screen are what YouTube think you should watch next.